Hey folks, Gen X Prepper here again. Um, Today I want to talk about something that just kind of, I won't say it gnaws at the back of my mind, but it's one of those things that when I'm scrolling, social media or YouTube, and I watch these videos, I watch a ton, um, to where someone always wants to say, this is your best concealed carry option, or this is the best home defense option. And I got to tell you right out of the gate, I am no expert and I have no place telling anyone what their best option for home defense is or what their best option for concealed carry is, because I'm not them. Everyone has a different preference, a different situation. So there's going to be so many variables that I think it's literally impossible for one person to say to another person, this is your best option. Now, one person can say to another person, this is a possible recommendation, but until you purchase the firearm and train with the firearm and utilize the firearm in the situation that you're in, you're never going to know what the perfect concealed carry firearm is or the perfect home defense uh, weapon is. And there's a ton of different. I see a lot of people that say a pistol is your best home defense weapon. Okay, and I've also seen people say that the AR-15 is your best home defense weapon, and then there's people that say that the 12 gauge shotgun is your best home defense weapon, and they're not all right, and they're not all wrong. Each one has given their opinion based on their situation. So they should have said, this is my best option for home defense, not the best option for home defense. Just like what I'm going to show you here today. These are my best options or preferred options for concealed carry, or carrying a weapon on me as part of my EDC. Well, I can talk about home defense. In fact, leave me in the comments if you want to know about what I feel for me is the best setup for home defense, and I'll make a video about that. It wouldn't take that long. But today I just want to talk about what for me is currently the best, which I should have brought one more thing out and I didn't. Damn it. We'll just talk about it here in a minute. For me personally, in my situation, my best carry option has changed over the years, over the decades. There was a time where this was a great option for me, and I carried it for many years in a waistband holster. My shirt or a jacket would go over it, and it worked out great. It was 90% concealed. I'm sure there were times where if I moved a certain way, you could see the bottom of my holster. It wasn't illegal in the state that I was living in, but a full-framed, this is a Taurus PT92. Beretta also makes, damn near the exact same one. I don't remember if this was my first or second pistol I ever purchased 33 years ago when I became old enough to purchase regulated firearms. I don't remember if this was the first one or the second one, but I've had it that long, and I've carried it for probably 80% of that time, legally, on my person as part of my everyday carry. Now, this was a perfect option for me. It feels good in my hand. I have a lot of hours at the range shooting this, so it's almost second nature for me to operate this weapon because of the amount of training and practice that I've had. It just feels right. Obviously, it's not a Glock, because there's no shortage of videos out there that say that the Glock 21 or the Glock 19 or the Glock 43, and I'm sure for those people, that's a great option or the perfect option for them. It's just not for me. And I'll get to that here in a minute. Now, about 10 years ago, I switched from this carry to this carry. This is a FN9 made by FNC. It's just a polymer frame metal slide pistol, very similar to Sig Sauers and Glocks and the Palmetto State Dagger. It's a striker fired pistol, to where this one has an actual hammer and a firing pin. This one is a different setup inside. This one's obviously considerably smaller than this, so it was much easier to conceal, obviously, which was helpful to me. And when I first started carrying this, I was using inside the waistband holster appendix carry, which worked out great. I could wear a regular size shirt and I wouldn't print, which kind of means your weapon is underneath of your shirt and you can see part of it. Like here, that's what they mean by printing, is being able to see it. It's not very concealed. With the inside the waistband holster, I was probably about 97% concealed. I could move around a little bit and literally never. In fact, I'm not even sure if anyone ever even called me out on it or said, hey, I could see that. If they did see it, they didn't say anything. But my concealment was much better with this than with this. Now, in the past 4 or 5 years, I've put some weight on. I guess it comes just with age. I have difficulty getting this efficiently in and out of an inside the waistband holster because of the weight change of me. So instead of buying a whole new wardrobe with bigger pants and a bigger belt, so it fits, I opted to go with a belly band, which this is a Velcro belly band that just fits underneath of my clothes, and it just above the appendix is where this rides. Just about the same location as an appendix, just a little bit higher. I'm fairly concealed as far as my printing goes. Again, I've put on some weight. My shirts aren't as baggy around the midsection, so every now and again, I can see it. But for the most part, it's fairly concealed. Which is ultimately the objective. You don't want to go walking around with, everybody and their brother knowing that you have a firearm on your side. Ultimately, it's there for your purposes and your protection. And, God forbid you ever have to, get it out. That means that there's a situation that requires it to be pulled, and that I'm sure never goes well. Thankfully, I've never had to pull mine. I've never been in a situation. I've had situations where I've had to put my hand close because I thought the situation was going to go a little bit south, but it turned out I avoided the situation and nothing ever happened. But these are options, and I guess that's what I'm trying to convey here is you see all these videos about this is your best concealed carry, or this subcompact is the best, and this micro compact is the best, and it's really difficult to distinguish what the best is until you actually have it and use it and practice with it and wear it. The inside the waistband at one time was the best option for me. It concealed well. It was comfortable for me to wear. And then things changed. I got a little spare tire down here now, so I had to change. Instead of buying all new pants, I chose to just get a belly holster, and I'm working on losing some weight. Haven't been successful yet, but I'm working on it. Changed my diet up a little bit. I'm going to try to get a few extra miles on trail, this year. So hopefully that'll do the trick. Now, the reason that you don't see a Glock here, and I don't have any negative things to say about Glock. I've personally never owned one. I have lots of friends that do. I've shot them. I think they're extremely simple. They're easy to break down. There's not a lot of moving parts. They're almost indestructible. Not the most accurate pistols, in my opinion, on the market as far as auto pistols go, but they get the job done. The part that I don't like about the Glock is how it feels in my hand. The grip angle off of the barrel access. doesn't feel comfortable for me. I prefer a bit steeper of a grip angle like this, or like this. If you look, these are fairly similar. These grip angles, they're real close to each other. I wish I had a Glock here to show you. The Glock is a little more angled like this. If you ever hold, pistols next to each other and look at the angle off the barrel access of the grip, Glocks are just a little bit more. I think these are 17% or 17-degree angle, and I think the Glock is 23. It isn't much, but it's enough for me to feel it when I hold it, and that's what I could never get past. And I have a friend that lives out in Arizona. Him and I grew up together. We've been shooting together since we were old enough to start learning to shoot, long before we were old enough to buy regulated firearms, or any firearm for that matter, is how long we've been friends and been shooting together. And he's a fan of a Colt 45. That to him, the Colt 45 and I believe a Browning High Power were his first two pistols he purchased, and they have very similar grip angles. Now, I think he does have Glocks now, and I know his wife carries a Glock 43. That's her preference. I don't know what he carries, day to day. A lot of times they'll tell you that your carry pistol should technically be disposable. One that you're not going to be so upset if you don't have it anymore, meaning if you have to use it, the police are going to take it as evidence, and it could be some time before you get it back, or you may not get it back at all. So, you don't want to go buy, a $2,500 Daniel Defense 9mm and carry it around every day, because if you have to use it, you're not going to have it anymore. And you're going to be out $2,500. Versus, say like a Palmetto State dagger or a Glock or something that's slightly or considerably less pricey, just in case. Now, this was mid-range. I think these go for right around 600, maybe 650. They're a little bit nicer than the Glock, in my opinion. And they don't have the grip angle that the Glock has, which I like a whole lot better. And it was cheaper than a SIG, or cheaper than a Browning, or any of the other bigger name brands. I know a lot of people haven't heard of, FNC. They've been around for a long time. They make really decent firearms. They have a couple different models. In fact, I think they make a compact version of this where the grip is a little bit shorter, and I think the barrel is a ½ inch shorter. I'm not sure. This one felt good. It's small enough for me to conceal, so I went with this one. Now, I have had my eye on the new Ruger RXM. I do not have one yet, but it is definitely on my list. In fact, it's pretty high on my list of, near in the future purchases in the firearms category. I'm really impressed with the specs on it and the reviews on it. It also has that 17-degree grip angle, so it's more like this, or more like the Colt 45. It doesn't have that extreme Glock grip angle that I don't like. They make a ton of accessories. Magpul makes the bottom, the frame section, and Ruger makes the slide and the fire control assembly, because it's also striker fired. Now, with the Ruger, the fire system inside is actually what's regulated. So as this firearm becomes more and more popular, in time, more and more parts are going to become available, just like for Glocks. There's a million accessories and aftermarket parts. There's triggers and slides and barrels, and you can just about buy anything for a Glock, to change it out. The Ruger is very similar. So in time, there's going to be different size, or different grip texture, different colors for the grip. I know the slide for the RXM already is interchangeable, including the barrel, is interchangeable with Glocks and with the Palmetto State dagger. The new Ruger RXM also accepts Glock magazines. Now, I've seen some reviews that the Magpul magazines that it comes with don't work as well as the Glock, a factory Glock magazine. So when I decide to make that purchase, I may end up getting some Glock. I believe it's the Glock 19 mag that is interchangeable with it. So I may end up getting some factory Glock mags, which are considerably pricier than a Magpul. You know, Magpuls are probably the cheapest around. In fact, the magazine for these, for the Taurus or the Beretta, these run about $60 a piece for these. They're all metal, great magazines. This is the original factory magazine that came with this pistol, and it's worked flawlessly for 30 years. I've never had jam issues or anything. It's a solid magazine. Now, I do have 4 of the Magpul magazines, and I think they were about $22 or $25 a piece. And I don't have enough time on them to say positively or negatively that they're as good as this, but I did test them when I got them and they function. Now, will they wear out? This one didn't. I don't know if they'll wear out. You know, after, I mean, this pistol and this magazine have probably had 10,000 rounds, if I had to guess. It's been a lot. In fact, this pistol's had so many rounds through it, it's probably ready for a barrel replacement. But I've cleaned, I keep it clean. I've checked the lands and grooves many times. It's in great shape. My head spacing is still good. My chambering is still good. I'm impressed that it lasted as long as it did. And as you can see, this is one of the older models because there is no Picatinny lug underneath the barrel here. All the newer ones have the molded in lug for a light or whatever in them. This one does not. That'll tell you how old this one is. But it works flawlessly. It's accurate as I don't know what. So I'm hesitant to change anything. So, but again, it's not my everyday carry anymore. You know, I have something else for that. And, you know, here in the near future, I may upgrade to the Ruger, which is the same size as this, same size slide, same size barrel. The grip is about the same size. So the Ruger RXM is about the same size. I don't know about the width. I think the Ruger is a little bit skinnier. I'm not sure. I'd have to get them side by side and look at it. But I've only seen the Ruger twice now. I saw it in a store shortly after it came out, and I kind of, you know, eyeballed over it a little bit. And then a few weeks ago, I went to the local indoor range, you know, where I live, and I rented one. Now, I didn't have a lot of time to really get the feel for it, but I did put 2 magazines through it, and it felt very similar to this. It was not like shooting a Glock. I was like, hey, this feels like my FN. You know, it functions well. I mag dumped it with 15 rounds in it, and it was a rental, and it was flawless. So I'm pretty satisfied thus far, but I have not gotten one yet. I do have a couple of my buddies, keeping their eye out for when one goes on sale. I think right around 400 is what they're running on the shelf right now, brand new, which is a little bit less than this. I think I paid $650 for this about 10 years ago. It's been good. It certainly doesn't have as much range time as this one does, but it hasn't let me down. It functions. I have factory mags that are metal. They're not plastic. I don't have any aftermarket mags for this. When I ordered extra mags for this, I ordered FN mags, and I think they were $55 or $60. They're not cheap. So I don't have many of these. I think I only have 4 mags for this pistol, as opposed to this one. I think I have 4 original Taurus mags, and then I think I have 4 Magpul mags. So I think I have 8. And these are 15 rounders, high cap, as well as this. These are 15 rounders, high cap, which is a good thing. Certainly better than 10. But that's it. Like I said, I think people get the wrong idea when they make the statement that this is the best or that's the best, because I think there's a lot of variables involved, and every situation and every shooter is going to be different. Everybody's going to have a different preference to how it feels in their hand or how it functions in their hand. Certainly a caliper. These are both 9mm. That's what I'm a fan of. But like I said, my buddy out in Arizona, he prefers 45. I'm sure there are guys out there that prefer 40 Smith & Wesson. I'm sure there's guys out there that prefer 380. or something other, some other caliper or cartridge. It's all about preference, and the most important thing is training. You can't just go buy a pistol and load up a magazine and think that you're going to be proficient and everything's going to fall into place like you see in a movie. It takes dozens, if not hundreds of hours of range time and practice time to become proficient with your firearm, to where, God forbid, you ever have to draw it and use it, it's going to be flawless. Your drawing, your aiming, your firing is going to be flawless. It's almost an extension of your body when you do it, and that's really what you want to strive for. It's, if you're out and you're shaking all over the place, and yeah, it is scary to have someone shoot at you, but there are some assailants that are going to be quite desperate, I'm sure, in certain situations, that just a gun going off isn't going to scare them. They're going to keep coming till you put them down, and that's certainly if it's your life or theirs. I would hope that first of all, that everybody and anybody would avoid the situation, so no one's life is at risk. But that's not always the case. Sometimes situations just don't work out the way we hope, and we end up in a situation that's not very pleasant for us. But that's why we prepare. It's not paranoia. It's sort of an insurance policy. If your day-to-day life takes you to anywhere that you could be at risk, there's no shame in defending yourself or being capable of defending yourself. The same as you go out and you drive your car on the road every day, you're always at risk of getting a flat tire. If it were up to us as citizens to purchase extra, a spare tire and a jack, I'm sure there's a boatload of people out there that would not do it. They would think, oh, I don't need that. That's not necessary. I don't need that. But it is necessary. That's why car manufacturers include them in the car, because it's necessary to have a spare tire, because the risk of getting a flat is high. Now, the risk of being in a dangerous situation that would require a firearm, that risk isn't as high in some areas. But if you live in a high crime area and you take that risk every day, there's no shame in being able to defend yourself. It doesn't always have to be a firearm. It could be pepper spray. It could be a knife or some physical hand-to-hand fighting training. Any version that makes you the most comfortable, or combination of those versions that makes you the most comfortable, I would suggest and recommend that you explore those. But when it comes to firearms and the statement of the best, I just can't buy into that, because I feel that I watch these videos that say, oh, this SIG P320 best out there. Wow, that's funny. I saw reviews where it goes off unexpectedly. To me, that's not the best. Or the Glock 19 is the best concealed carry. Okay, well, maybe for that guy or that girl, but it's not the best for me, because I don't like the way it feels in my hand. So again, everybody has a preference. I hope you got something from this video and you learned something. If you're new to the firearms world, it's always a good idea to go to a place that can rent. Most indoor ranges will rent firearms, and ask for an instructor or a range officer, that can help you, and explain to why this one is different than this one or that one. And, here, try this one, here, try that one. What feels better to you, and it could take a while. You could go through half a dozen pistols before you find something that really feels good in your hand. And it's not always going to be the one that gets recommended on YouTube or in a gun magazine or, by the guy down the street that swears by the Colt 45, or, it's all going to be different as far as the individual. So take it for what it is. I hope you learned something today. And of course, always keep your head on a swivel and we'll see you next time.